Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Shari Reif is a returning guest on our show. Check out her first and brief appearance on episode 612 of Boundless Body Radio, where we captured a few special stories from the attendees of the Collaborative Science Conference hosted by Dave Feldman in March of 2024. Shari Reif is married to her husband, who she lovingly calls Mr. Low Carb, whom she considers the love of her life. Together, they have 8 wonderful children and 2 little saints in heaven. The couple embarked on their low carbohydrate journey to aid Mr. Low Carb in managing his type 1 diabetes and weight. They transitioned the entire family to a low carbohydrate lifestyle, as Shari does not cater to individual dietary preferences, and they all have found numerous benefits from this lifestyle change. Shari hopes to share favorite recipes, books, podcasts, and information on their experiences with others. Shari's other interests include reading, learning, and spending time with her family. Despite being an introvert by nature, she pushes herself to engage in extroverted activities. You can find Shari on Instagram at Shari Reif and on her wonderful blog at sharislowcarbkitchen.com. Shari Reif, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you. So on Instagram, I'm actually the Carnivore Mommy, just so that everyone knows that. But yeah, so that was awesome. Wow.
The Carnivore Mommy. Okay, excellent. I will add that to the show notes. So thank you for clarifying that. I myself am having a bit of a challenge on Instagram these days. Apparently, I messaged you about a week ago about supporting my new clothing line. You were a little suspect, like, what the hell is Casey going to do with a clothing line? You can tell I'm not exactly the most stylish person in the world. That was my hacked Instagram account. I fell for it. I got completely hacked. They've taken it completely out of my control. I've hacked a bunch of my friends. And so me and Instagram are not getting along so great right now. I'm so glad you didn't fall for it like I did.
Oh no, yeah, that was just it was I'm just so sad that I couldn't make $1,000, in a day. I just wow.
Yeah, kind of crypto, you can make 12 grand and everything. So yeah, if you're ever interested, just reach out.
Yeah, that's why I decided to
That's
email
amazing.
you, because I was like, I think you're frozen.
Very, very strange for sure. Oh, did it freeze?
Yeah, it says your bandwidth is low, but
let me just double check my net. I'll edit this out, but I think we're good on network settings. I did a speed test before we started. Should
awesome.
be good.
Okay. Oh, beans.
There was a bit of a delay, but no worries. So the other thing I want to bring up, we talked about a lot of things that you are very, very good at in your introduction, your hobbies and all that stuff. I have to point out one thing that you're not very good at. When we did our episode before, when we did our episode before, we talked about the weather and how much you were looking forward to going to Las Vegas. And you gave us a weather report. It was going to be 80 degrees and sunny. You were really wrong. It was like 45 degrees and rainy in Las Vegas in March. So I hope all that other stuff is working out really well and sharing your message, which is so important, which you are very, very good at, because little suspect about your potential future predicting weather.
Yeah, you know what though, especially here in Wisconsin, I think the weather people are maybe right 5% of the time. So I have to be about as good as them.
Pretty close.
I was because we had talked so far in advance before, and then like 2 days before, I had to change my flight around and everything because of blizzards and stuff in Denver, which is where I was supposed to have a layover and this and that. And so I got like the last flight anywhere that didn't have to go through Denver. And so I was still thinking, oh, it's going to be 80. I'm going to get out of this miserable weather. This is great. I'm going to wear my cute sandals. Maybe I'll pack a couple of cute skirts or something. I'm like, I'm just going to recheck the weather. And I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. So the sandals went back in the closet and out came my warmer clothes again, because I'm like, I'm going to Vegas for Wisconsin weather. All right.
Yep. Totally. Yeah, it did change pretty quick. And that it was not great. A lot of people didn't make the conference in the end because they had so many travel issues. So it was fortunate that you were able to catch that last plane and even make it. I was delayed by a few hours, and it was a bit of a mess to get down there. But I mean, boy,
Yeah.
now it's been over 2 months since that conference. Do you still feel pretty high? Do you still feel a pretty good buzz after being there and like going back to your normal life, but remembering what it was like to be there?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I love it. And Dave is slowly putting out the videos because they had recorded everything. And so when I had gotten home, I was talking to Les Lyons. I was with him at the conference, and I was like, "Do you remember which speaker it was that said cholesterol is made in the brain?" And it was the first time that I had ever heard that. Apparently, I'm the only person there that heard it, and I'm like, "No." And I thought it was Ben Bickman, but it wasn't. And then I thought that it was Brett Sure, but it wasn't. And he's like, "No, you're crazy. It doesn't, blah, blah, blah." And like everyone just kept saying I was crazy. I'm like, my memory is what I pride myself on because I have this really weird brain. I'm like, no, I know that I heard this. And 2 days ago, I was watching a interview with Dr. Georgia Eid, and I forget who was interviewing her, but she said all the cholesterol that the brain has is made in the brain. It doesn't come from the blood because it's too big of particles and won't pass through the blood-brain barrier. So she said everything that is cholesterol in the brain, and the brain uses a majority of the cholesterol, is made in the brain. So I had to text Les and say, "See, I wasn't crazy. I'm not crazy." And I sent him the link and everything because I'm like, here I am, the only person that heard this at the conference, and I still can't remember which speaker it was. So I'm like slowly waiting for Dave to finish putting out all the videos. But I felt vindicated that I wasn't crazy and that I did remember
There you go.
correctly.
That's amazing. It is a lot of information that you get at these conferences. I don't blame you for not like remembering where everything came from because a lot of those presentations were very in depth and very technical, and it was really fun. There was a few that I completely just went right over my head, but just to be there and be around the energy of everybody there was really quite an amazing experience. That one was special.
Oh yeah, it was so great, and I'm looking forward when Dave puts out the applications to be a citizen science speaker because I'm going to apply, and I'm saving up to drag my husband with so that he can, be there too. And yeah, definitely going to go back next year because I just learned so much and that I can share with other people, and that's what I want to do.
Love it.
So yeah.
That's amazing. As part of what we did last time, we were able to capture you and kind of a bit of your story before we met at the conference. We then met at the conference, and we were able to capture like what your experience was afterwards. And the nature of that is just we're not going to be able to go super in depth with everybody's personal stories, but your personal story within the first minute or two is so heavy and all the things you had gone through. I think we need to take a little bit more time and go through your personal story and how you got interested in health to begin with. It sounds like from a very young age, you had to deal with some traumas that led to poor health down the road. So if you don't mind, we can go in a bit of detail into your story of health and what that was like for you.
Yeah. So my mom was a single mom until I was 9, and she struggled with mental illness like her entire life. But it was never really caught. And there was a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse, both physical and emotional. And that actually carried through after she married my dad, who adopted me, into my late teens until I turned 18 and left home. And I haven't really talked about this much on any interview, but it's true when they say victims stay close to their abuser because that's all you know. Changing and reaching out for help is often more scary than just, bless you, than just staying with just staying with what you know. And I had younger siblings. And so I was always worried about us being separated. So we never let on anything that was going on at home. And so I stayed close with my mom, even into my adult life after having kids. And there was still always this emotional abuse, if you will, that it just made my anxiety levels, that much higher. What I went through as a child and a teen, I'm lucky to have survived. So if you've ever seen the movie Mommy Dearest, that was basically my life, but amplified by about 10 times. So when we lost our son in 2011, I had a dear priest friend that was helping me through that trauma. And then everything kind of came out with him, and he equated my life to that of someone that had been in a concentration camp. So it was pretty rough. And so there was a lot of damage done to my body. So my body is very broken. And my back went out on me at the age of 13. That was the first time that it went out. I had bent down to pick up a dresser drawer and I just collapsed. There was just this stabbing pain in my lower back. And so because of other genetic issues too, my bones are too close together. Like my ligaments they don't stretch properly. And so all of that coupled together just caused a lifetime of pain. And having babies puts a lot of stress on your body and your muscles and your tissues. And so that just progressively made things worse. I had graduated high school at 16 and then college at 18, but I wasn't allowed to pick my own program. So I actually have an associate's degree in automotive technician.
Wow.
So I can work on older cars. Not that I want to, but at least I never got taken by a mechanic. So, but at 27, I spent 18 months in physical therapy during the pregnancy with my 5th daughter, and then after, and I was walking with a cane. And my physical therapist was amazing. It was a different kind of physical therapy. Like they did manipulations and things, not like a chiropractor, but it wasn't like physical therapy where you do exercises and things like that, because I couldn't have exercised even if I wanted to. But at the end of 18 months, he's like, this is as good as you're going to get. So just keep your cane handy. And I had pretty much a standing prescription of Vicodin or Tylenol with codeine. My doctor kind of tried to switch it up so that it wouldn't be one, just the same one. And then, 800 to 1,000 milligrams of ibuprofen 2 to 3 times a day. So having young kids and being debilitated made me a crappy mom. I mean, it just, I was either doped up or I couldn't move. I couldn't take them places. I'd sit out on the front steps. And when my son that just graduated as a cop was 3, he thought it was going to be funny to head towards the street and have mommy chase him. Because what 3-year-old doesn't want mommy to chase him? Well, there was a car coming, and it was all I could do just to power through. I couldn't bear weight on my right side at that time, but somehow I managed to get close enough to shove him to the ground. It's not like I could swoop him up or, play a game. That was all I could do. And then we both just laid there writhing in pain. And I mean, I had to shove my kid into the grass. It's a horrible memory. And I spent my life in nutritional supplement stores trying to find something to help my husband with his type 1 diabetes and his blood sugar, because his A1Cs would be anywhere between 12 to 14. And to help me, and to help us both with our energy. And I don't know how many thousands and thousands of dollars that I wasted. Then God dropped a really good nutritional supplement company into our laps and literally saved my husband's life. We thought he had colon cancer, and here he just needed his digestion fixed. And so at this time, we're still eating the way that they say we're supposed to eat, all the whole grains, this and that. And I'm weighing his pasta and everything. And he ended up with diabetic retinopathy. And with supplementation, we were able to keep the hemorrhages at bay. But you can't out supplement a bad diet. And so in 2010, this is when everything with the cancer scare and everything, I really started doing deep dive reading on nutrition and things. And slowly that led us to paleo. And because I had read some not so good things on the ketogenic way of life, I was ill-informed. And so I was actually kind of I shouldn't say kind of, I was anti-keto. But it took me getting to my heaviest and just being in complete pain to finally reach out to a friend. And she introduced me to Dr. Jason Fung's work. And I was reading this, I'm like, fasting and keto. Oh, this makes so much sense. And that's what we did. And we just started down that, and my pain just kept getting better and better. With the Neolife, that was the supplement company that we used, I was about 60% pain-free, but still not where I needed to be. And man, cutting out the carbs, even the veggies and fruit, and then doing that fasting just took me like to the next level. My husband's A1C is 7. We're working on getting it down further. And so we just made it our mission and our goal to teach our kids, number one, this way, and then to help anyone else that wants the help. So I took courses, I became certified, I'm still taking courses. I just did, there was a health thing that was done in London this past weekend. So I paid for the virtual seminar of that, and I participated through all of that. If I had letters behind my name, it would have counted for medical CE. So, I mean, it's not just like, oh, you just get stuff off of YouTube and think you know it all. I'm like, no, I really do have the education. Not everyone wants to believe that, but so yeah, now I'm off of pain medication. My cane is tucked away in the basement. I haven't taken it to St. Vinny's yet, just because you keep things around so that you can remember where you came from, and so it's there. But yeah, I can do things now with my kids. We can go on long walks, and I don't have to worry. There was one time I had to be carried out of my husband's grandma's house because I got jammed up and I couldn't walk. So my husband had me on one side, my father-in-law had me on the other side, and they had to carry me out the van. It was awful. It was so embarrassing. But that was my life.
Wow, that's amazing. It's very similar to Les's story. Les Lyons, you already mentioned. We've hosted him again on our show as well. It's like, I only know the current iteration of him and you, and I only know that version of the person that I met at the conference a few months ago. And it's hard for me to imagine, Les, the way he described and the way you see in his before and after pictures, his before where he was walking with a cane and he was overweight and all these things, and seeing you and how active you were and like how happy and bouncy and like just talking to everybody, to imagine you in that state of health and being in that much pain and walking with a cane, it's a little crazy to really kind of think about and reflect on. It must not be the best memories, like you said, of being a mom, and the most you could do is shove down your kid. That's got to be pretty rough.
Yeah, it was not fun, and I had severe chronic PTSD and anxiety. And then when we lost our son, that just kind of like it was my breaking point where I couldn't mask anything anymore. And so it really, really, like some days, even just trying to go to the grocery store, the anxiety was just so bad. I just like couldn't do it. I forced myself to, because I didn't want to be one of those people that never left the house. So I would force myself to, but all the while I was just like, just the whole time, especially during COVID, that was really hard with everyone. being masked and everything, it just, it just amped me up even more. And so for me to even be able to go to something like Vegas by myself, not knowing anyone, meet Les at the airport. He came and picked me up. And so, I mean, essentially, like, I was there by myself. I had met him through Dr. Barry's group, but, we had only spoken on the phone. So I had never like actually met him in person. I hadn't even Zoomed with him. And so that was like a huge victory for me. And so there was, I look back in the pictures and I can be like my daughter's baptism, the one that I was in physical therapy with. I didn't hold her at all through the whole baptism because I couldn't hold myself up. And so there was no pictures of me holding my daughter. And the following Sunday, after my flare had gone down, I made everyone dress back up in the exact same clothes that they were. And we went back to the church and we took pictures of me with her in her baptism gown, because I wanted to have those, but I can look at them and I know that it wasn't the same day. I know that someone else might not know that, but for me, it's kind of, it still is a crusher. And it's just like, but I can be a witness to someone else that has a broken body like me. Now I can do exercises and I can work out with my Pilates bar and my TRX things. There are still things that I can't do because I still do have to be a little bit careful with my back, but every day is better. And the pain isn't there. I can wear pretty girly shoes instead of sneakers all the time. And yeah, I mean, life is good and we can't go back and fix the past. And that's who made me who I am today. But it still sucks.
Well, that's quite remarkable. I want to go to your husband and his story. As you're recollecting, type 1 diabetes and getting that diagnosis, do you remember, did they educate you at all on diet? Even if we can agree that it maybe wasn't the right information, did they talk about his diet at all relating to that condition?
So we got, when he was first diagnosed, him and his mom were, and then they had given him materials. And when we switched to an endocrinologist, they gave us the exchange book. So like it had the food exchanges but really that was like the bulk. They just wanted him to have a balanced diet. All they ever cared about was cholesterol. They wanted to, and they still want to, shove him on a statin, regardless of what his cholesterol is. And his cholesterol is pristine. It's great. At this last appointment, his doctor actually didn't mention a statin at all. She was happy with his numbers. So I was like really taken aback by that. But no, it was always just, this is your sliding scale for insulin. If you're, over this amount, and their amounts for blood sugar are so screwy. It's like if you're over 150 for your target goal, then you take X amount of correction, and, just make sure that you weigh your food and this and that. And I mean, it's just insane. They want you to have this higher blood sugar. And I get it. They're worried about hypos. I 100% get that, because when my husband was on a mixed insulin, so if people don't know, back in the day before they had long acting insulin and then short acting insulin for the food, they had insulin. It was called 70/30, and it was 70% like long acting, and then the 30% was supposed to be the food. So you had to eat to your insulin, but where it peaked, it could cause really bad lows. And there was one time where he started having a seizure in bed and woke me up, and I checked his blood sugar and it was down to like 34. And he was all clenched like this, so I couldn't even get any sugar in without fear of him choking. So I had to call 911, and he woke up to paramedics around our bed with an IV in his arm, and he was not happy. He was like, there wasn't anything else that you could do. I'm like, I could let you die. And so you had to eat to the insulin. And so I get how scary hypos can be. And I understand from a physician's point of view how scary hypos can be. But if you take away the carbohydrate aspect, you get to have lower insulin. So you're not going to have something that's artificially driving those blood sugars down too low. And if they would teach to use the right type of insulin to cover protein, you don't end up with lows with that either. And so we're like all on our own. We listen a lot to Dr. Bernstein, and I'm part of the type 1 group on Facebook. And so he basically just keeps his appointments with his doctor. I tell him what labs I want run, and he has them run, and he just keeps his appointments because that's the only way we can get his insulin. They won't re-prescribe insulin or his CGM if he doesn't see them every 3 months. So that's what we have to do. You play that game, you have to play that game. And it sucks. And I just tell them, you just go in and smile and nod at whatever they say. And we just do our own thing. And he tried talking to them, tried giving them Dr. Bernstein's book, tried giving them Dr. Fung's diabetes book. And he just got told, oh, Dr. Fung's diabetes book is for type 2. Yeah, but Dr. Bernstein's is for type 1. You could have at least looked at that. And they wouldn't at all. So, I'm hoping that one day we'll get his A1C down to at least 6. We'll see. But 7 is still a heck of a lot better than 14.
Yeah, seriously. It's so interesting, this community, this type 1 community that's coming out. You mentioned type 1 grit on Facebook. Just so grateful for everybody who's out there learning this on their own and then sharing it with other people, because the way it's been explained on this show so many times is like when you're getting the standard advice, the swings up and down of blood sugar and these dosages of insulin are massive. And we know all these crazy side effects we get from it. It's not the greatest injecting it with all the time, yet it's also so I just concluded by saying, like, it's just such a better way to manage type 1 by dealing with like the smaller numbers. So anytime you want to jump in and just kind of comment on that and your experience with that is great.
Yeah, no, the smaller numbers is, I love Dr. Bernstein. Well, he was an engineer before. And so, the law of small numbers makes complete sense. And when you're injecting a massive amount of insulin into the tissue, it's going to pool. And it's not like when you have a pancreas and it's just going to, inject a little bit, it all pools there. And then you don't know the absorption rate. And when you're dealing with these large amounts of insulin, you're also going to gain a lot of weight. And that happened to my husband because we tried an insulin pump. We thought, oh, that'll be better. And I think it would have been if we would have been eating this way. The problem is that we weren't eating this way. We were eating let's weigh your pasta and this and that. So we was constantly having to take a lot more insulin. You ended up with a lot more scar tissue and then just buttload of abdomen fat. So now we're trying to work on, he's back on the injections, and I switched him. We buy our insulin from Walmart because you don't need a prescription for that. And that's what we use to cover his protein. And because it matches the protein spike better, or peak, I should say. But yeah, it's just the amount of insulin, and the amount of insulin that I see people on, whether they're type 1 or type 2, just drives me nuts. My dad is a type 2. We're working on reversing that, but he's off of insulin. The amount of insulin they had him on, they had him on one insulin, and it was U300. So it's 3 times concentrated U100. And they had him on over 100 units of that a day. So he was taking like over 300 units of insulin a day. And it was just crazy. His A1C is still too high, but at least he doesn't have to be on the insulin right now. And he's lost over 100 pounds. And we tackled his with just lower carb, and then fasting. So that works out really good. His doctors are pleased. The dietitian they had him see was not happy. She told him that weight was just, she said it was just dehydration. He lost 100 pounds from dehydration. And she insisted he needed to go back on all of his medications, and just like, and he did a whole bunch of crap. And he called me up. He's like, hey, guess what? I'm like, oh, you better pray she never comes across my path. And he filed a complaint against her, and so he's not seeing her anymore. So I'm not going to see her again. And I'm like, why would you even? Oh, it's just the stupidity in the medical field sometimes. As endocrinologist, I was a little bit nervous about, because in the beginning, when he first got sent her, she's like, well, if you get your numbers under control, then I'll consider, whatever it was. And I was just like, she works for you, And so we didn't even consult her. We just did this. We just fasted. I'm like, it's all safe. I had him do some lab numbers so that I knew he wasn't slipped into type 1, because he had been diabetic for 23 years at that point. And man, when she saw him, she was just like, holy cow. And he was very open with what he was doing. And she was complaining about headaches. And so I was like, oh, so this is my doctor, non-doctor. That's what he calls me. Just take pinches of salt with water. It'll take care of it. And she's like, oh, that makes so much sense. So that's what she does now. So I mean, it was like this 180, but she couldn't deny the results. And his primary care has always been on board with whatever you want, I'll do. And he's been open that way. So that was real good. It was just this dietitian trying to tell him that he lost over 100 pounds from dehydration. I just like,
wild.
It's just so insane. But yeah, so I don't know. Diabetes is just, I want my kids to never fall down that path. I mean, I know you can't do anything about type 1 because it's autoimmune, but I think if they can take care of themselves better as children growing up, you're less likely to end up with autoimmune. Obviously, no one is immune from autoimmune, but type 2, you certainly can, do stuff about. And so, I don't know, people will ask me all the time why I make food that looks like food that would get you sick. And because I just did a birthday cake recipe, and I put that up on my website. And it's not perfected, but I had a bunch of people asking me for it. And someone made the comment, well, this looks just like when keto tried starting to make treats and just eat real food. I'm like, well, this is all real food. There's not even nut flour in it. It's all like cheeses and eggs and stuff. It's pretty carnivore compliant, other than the little bit of sweetener, which you can mix. And there, I was like, I do this. I make recipes like this because it lets my kids feel like they can still be kids, and they're not like these weird, they don't have to feel weird around their friends. They can make egg bread, and take it. Their friends aren't going to know. We can make cake, and they can have birthday cake with their friends. Their friends aren't going to know that it's mostly protein. They're not going to care. So if like 3% of the time we eat some carnivore treats with a little bit of plant sweetener, I don't care. And if it helps someone that maybe this is the person that I actually made the recipe. Well, I made the recipe, but I did the video for. It was going to be their first birthday with not having a birthday cake. And they didn't know quite how they felt about that. Well, if this helped them not fall down the path of a bakery birthday cake, and it didn't make them sick and end up falling down that carb hole, then isn't that worth it? And I mean, like, I make a carnivore lasagna. Well, I do it because it's more filling than just eating the ground beef. So it's easier on my budget, and it's fun, and it gives us the idea that we're having variety, even though we're eating the same foods, but we're having variety. So it helps my budget, and it helps my kids feel like normal people. So they want to eat this way, and they see that eating healthy doesn't have to be just ground beef all the time or steak all the time. I mean, yeah, we'd eat steak every day if we could, but I can't afford that.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, that's what, if I make a chocolate protein pudding, well, if that helps my kids get more protein in, I'm going to do that. And you know what? The last batch that I made, my daughter actually said, "Hey mom, next time you make it, can you make it a little less sweet?" And I didn't even think that I made it like that sweet, but they wanted it even less sweet. So their taste buds changed. But it's all protein. It's just eggs and some heavy whipping cream and some macadamia nut milk, and then the little bit of sweetener that you put in. Like, why wouldn't I do that? You know, it helps them. Kids sometimes just need to be kids, not little adults.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm glad that we don't see too much of this, but it does drive me a little bit crazy in the carnivore space when people are throwing shade at other people, saying this is carnivore, this isn't carnivore. I always like the way more liberal term of carnivore that can include plenty of plants that are safe for you in the diet, and we don't need to squabble about whether that's the best thing. I just look at the general population. People are not doing that great. If we can just move in this direction, you're doing so much better than most people. So I love that approach. I love that you don't make it so rigid and so strict that people aren't able to do it, right?
I don't ever want to be so dogmatic that I just turn someone off. I don't want to be that way with my faith. I don't want to be that way with my lifestyle. I want to live it and share it, which I do, but I want to meet people where they are. Like Dr. Barry says, it's the proper human diet, and it has a spectrum. And as long as it's a whole food, that's great. Don't tell anyone, but I have frozen blueberries, frozen strawberries in my freezer because my kids will have that with some homemade whipped cream as a dessert. Now, they are metabolically healthy. There's nothing wrong with that. Is my husband, who's a diabetic, going to eat berries? No, probably not. And if he did, it would be, very limited. We like asparagus. We like green beans. They don't cause me pain. I have found other vegetables do cause me pain. I would get horrible pain in my feet. I have a client that was on, she's a dear friend of mine. She has ankylosing spondylitis and bursitis and some other issues. She's on like 12 different medications. I have known her for 13 years now, and there are days that she couldn't even get out of bed. She would be in so much pain. And I remember about 8 years ago talking to her, what if you just took gluten out? Why don't we just start with taking gluten out? No, she would not do any diet change. Well, January, she messages me. Someone from church who has the same ankylosing spondylitis as her is off meds, pain-free, from Carnivore. So she messages me and she's like, "I need your help. I'm ready to start." And I was crying because I had been praying for her like all this time, because now she's a grandma, and I just wanted her to be able to have that life. And so I was like, yes, yes. So she'd text me, "Is this okay? Is this okay?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm here for your support." She came out and we did an interview for my channel. She's 22 pounds down now, 2 pant sizes down. But what is even better is within a month, she was zero pain. Went to a rheumatologist. He was so excited. He thought she was doing the anti-inflammatory diet, and he like gave her stuff on that. She shows it to me. I'm like, no, it was full of inflammatory foods. I'm like, we'll just look a gift horse in the mouth that he's happy with what you're doing and he thinks it's the same thing, and we're just going to roll with it. But he's got a plan with helping her wean off her meds, and he started doing that already. And her general practitioner is happy. And she's happy. And so she's actually now started sharing. So I'm like, you have to share. I tell everyone, it doesn't matter if you don't think it's a big deal. Someone else who's maybe on the brink of giving up might see your story and be like, I can give this another week. And so, but I mean, yeah, she has this plan now to be getting off of her medications, and she has no pain. So like Easter was great for her. She could spend it with her grandbabies and move and not have to worry about it. And then I have another friend, her son has he's got a cartilage issue. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's EDS. she paid thousands of dollars for this holistic nutritionist who put him on all this inflammatory foods, chickpeas and like all this stuff. And he wasn't growing. And they ended up at this clinic, the Spiro Clinic in, I think it's Kansas City. And they did a food allergy or food sensitivity test, which those are just useless. And I just gently reached out to her and I'm like, you know, don't go off of the food sensitivity. A lot of it on there made sense because it was inflammatory, but it's because that's what he was eating. And so she's like, I don't know who to listen to. Can you send me information? And I talked to Dr. Barry about her on a Zoom call, and then I recorded it so that I could send it to her. And she started him on Carnivore and her autistic son on Carnivore. And her son that was going through the program was released 3 weeks early. He started growing, and I mean, it was just fantastic. And her autistic son, he's nonverbal. He would never eat meat. He would gag at the thought of meat. And she texts me and she goes, "You're not going to believe this. He's living off of beef nuggets and chicken nuggets and carnivore Cheetos." Whatever the heck carnivore Cheetos are, I don't know. I think it's a Maria and Merrick recipe, but that's what this autistic boy is living off of now. He's eating meat and he's not eating the other crap. And when you hear stories like that, and you even had a tiny little speck of a hand in that, and she said it's a journey, and I've got a great guide, you're just blubbering, and crying because you're like, all I did was share information, and let her pick my brain. But you can't put a price tag on things like that. So they were away from their dad, and she was away from her husband for 3 months, and it was supposed to be another 3 weeks, and they got to come home and surprise his baseball team. And so this little 11-year-old is able to be out playing baseball and stuff. And yeah, he still has his treatments and things that he needs to do. That condition isn't gone, but just think of how much worse it would be if he was still filling up with those inflammatory foods. And the clinic didn't really give any diet information because the diet information they had, she could see was just inflaming him. And so she just kind of broke away, and we did the diet thing on our own. And then they did, the treatment part for his body. And so it was just beautiful combination. And it was just, it just gives you bumps because this is life altering stuff that people just, they don't realize, it's not just the lose weight quick and then gain it back. It's not this crash diet that you're just going to go back to eating, I tell people, you have to seriously make a lifestyle change or I can't work with you. Because if it's just, you just want to lose 10 pounds to fit into your bathing suit, and then come the end of summer, you're going to go back to eating crap, just let me know now and I'll give you, a little bit of information, but then you can just go on your own, because that's not healthy. This is life changing, and we're changing lives. And that's what I want to do.
I will never get sick of hearing stories like that. And when you're in this community, you hear stories like that all the time. It's absolutely wonderful. I do want to ask, as you were transitioning over, it's one thing to change your own diet, a totally different thing if you want to change your spouse's diet. Was it terribly difficult for you with the kids? Did you have a small revolt on your hand as you were kind of changing the diet over in the beginning?
Kind of, but not too much. It's worse when they're with their grandparents, because their grandpa, who has horrible arthritis and stuff, he's a junk food junkie. And so there's always a little bit of tension there when he's pulling out like all these cookies and stuff. And sometimes he'll get upset because the kids don't want to eat that stuff because they know it makes them feel sick. So they get kind of caught in the middle where they feel guilty because grandpa wants them to eat this. In the beginning, it wasn't too bad because we did do a lot of keto treats more like in the beginning. And we had kind of moved over from paleo, which paleo was still better than the standard American diet, but it was still way high carb because you're eating a lot of fruit and natural sugars, date paste and all of this. So for them, we just really started with, just the lower carb. You could still have the fruit. We made keto granola bars. We made mug cakes. There was a lot of almond flour used, things like that. So they didn't necessarily feel like they were losing out. Tried several different keto bread recipes. So they were still able to have like some sandwiches and stuff. Now we make a protein bread with egg whites and they love that. And we make some Wonder Bread chaffles. They're waffles, but they taste like bread. And so now they can have even better sandwiches than what we had back in 2019 when we were first starting. We homeschool, which really helps. So we don't get too much of a revolt when we're like, this is what we're doing, because that's all they know. They know, well, this is what mom and dad say. They want what's best for us, because that's the community, that we're in. I hear so many parents, they're like, oh, once your teenagers are teens, they're going to do whatever the heck they want. Like, not mine, because of the way that they were raised, and they didn't have that, influence. And they know that we're the parents. And if they go off and they do something they're not supposed to, we will shut them down. They're involved in sports. Well, my kids know, they do know, because they were involved in sports many years ago and their behavior went like really wonky from being around. There was some questionable kids on one of the team. They got pulled out and they lost sports for the rest of the year. They learned their lesson real quick. Some people might think that that's harsh, but either I'm going to parent my kids or the judge is going to parent my kids when they're adults. So I'm fortunate we don't have too much issue, but I have a niece that is a carbaholic, not a sweet treat type carbaholic, but a junk food junkie carbaholic. And we had her for a weekend, and I didn't know, because her parents were like, no, we don't eat that many sweets. So I made chicken nuggets and I had my protein pudding, but there was no sugar. There was no carbs in anything. By the end of the 48 hours, she was in complete detox. Like, she was sweating, she was puking. It was awful. And it didn't dawn on me that it was a drug withdrawal. And her mom got her home, gave her 3 pieces of toast and a couple of eggs, and she was right as rain. I was like, I'm the worst aunt ever, because I never would have just cold turkeyed a child. I would have gone and gotten crackers or something that could have, helped. I had no clue. I thought she was coming down with a bug. I had no clue, and I felt so awful. But she's addicted, and you can tell because it was in her. I mean, it was just 48 hours without it, and she was in complete drug withdrawal. And I know what that looks like because I have a sister that's a heroin addict. So I know what that looks like. And I didn't spot it in my little 5-year-old niece. I didn't spot it. And so I'm like, we have to start teaching these kids that this is junk. It's addicting. And like, my kids know that, and they'll watch documentaries with me and things like that. And they know they feel crappy after they eat sugar. And I let them make those mistakes when they go out. If they want to buy junk and they're using their own money, they will pay for it. And they, in both dollar bills and in how they feel the next day, they have to be able to make those mistakes. But I'm not going to let them do that every day, because that's not good for their health. And then we end up paying for it with medical bills.
Right, exactly. So are they to the point now that they understand more of like what you just said, that like they will pay for it, not just with their money, but with their health the next day? Does that help keep them very motivated to eat this certain way?
Oh yeah, for sure. So my 2 girls they run track and field, and then my 17-year-old she ran cross country this last fall. She was the only one on the team that was fat fueled. Everyone else was carb loading and everything. And cross country is horrid. These kids run 3.1 miles. They come into this like corral, this chute, like what you would think you're corralling cattle into. And there are people waiting there to grab these kids from under the arms and drag them off. Because by the time they end that 3.1 miles, some of them are puking, Some of them are ready to pass out. I mean, they just like fall. My daughter, yes, she's tired. She's out of breath. You know, sometimes she would have a stitch in her side, but she doesn't have to be drug off. You know, they don't have to grab her under the arms and drag her off. It was completely, you know, different. She gets her electrolytes. She gets, you know, she has bacon. She'll have protein. And, you know, all these other kids, you know, they got their pretzels and their goldfish and all of this in their backpack. And she's just like rolls her eyes because she knows and she can see what it's doing to them. They either have high anxiety, they get hurt constantly. You know, yeah, she'll ache and hurt where she needs to ice things, but they're pulling stuff and, you know, breaking things. And it's just like it's insane. And they know. And like we went on vacation in October of last year, and my 17-year-old, she's 16 at the time, she goes to me, now mom, you know that I'm gonna go off the rails, right? I'm like, yep. And you're not gonna scold me, right? Nope. Your decision, but I'm not gonna feel sorry for you either. No, I know, I get it. And I won't be too bad, but it's vacation. Okay. We weren't even there like 3 days, and eczema on her backside, on her rump, just broke out. She comes in, she used to have really bad eczema. And she comes into our bedroom in the condo and she's like, Mom, did you bring my eczema cream? I'm like, no, why would I bring your eczema cream? You haven't needed that in years. And she pulls her pants down a little and shows me. And she's like, it hurts so bad. And when they would go swimming, the chlorinated water, oh, that just felt really good. And I'm like, ice it and put some aloe vera gel on. That's the best that I can do. And I'm like, and she goes, I know it's from the way that I, you know, ate. So, I mean, they know. And my 19-year-old, she works at a local boutique. And they make her lunch every day. But she didn't know how to tell them, I can't eat wheat. It does a number on my stomach. So she was eating it. And she has some thyroid issues that we have to work out and whatever. So finally she was just like, okay, mom, I just have to start taking my bread. I finally told my boss that I have to eat this special way because it's how I feel better. And it's fine. It all works out. So she takes some protein pudding, she takes her own bread, and they put the meat on and make the sandwich, and it's fine. And, you know, we went through, and my 17-year-old she's like, you know, my hair is kind of falling out. I'm not feeling my best. And I was like, I don't think you're eating enough protein. And I'm like, we're going to track. So we put Carb Manager on her phone. And my kids don't have regular phones. They have glorified iPads. They're hooked up to Wi-Fi so they can listen to music and stuff. And that's pretty much it. And like for their schoolwork. So we put Carb Manager on, and I showed her how to use it. And we set her macros. And the first 2 days, right, she's doing this and she sends me screenshots. She's like, I don't know what these numbers are, but they don't look right. Like, oh my gosh, you are severely under eating. Like, I don't even think she was eating 1,000 calories. And we call them units of energy because calories don't mean anything. And if she had 70 grams of protein, you know, that was surprising. And it's just because she's so busy. So I'm like, no, we're going to get nutrient dense. You're just going to need to eat more, and you'll eat more times a day. And so we fixed that pretty quick. So they know, you know, I need the protein, and they can feel when they don't get it. They're like, yeah, we need the protein. It's not even so much the fat. They need the fat, but I'm like, the fat comes along with the protein because we don't eat lean protein. So I'm like, it's fine. You don't have to be adding copious amounts of fat to things. Just take it as it is, you know? And so she'll have a couple burger patties, but we had to find ways to get more protein in smaller amounts of food because her stomach is not that big. So I got some high protein yogurts that don't have sugar in them, and she can eat that. And then I made the protein pudding and, you know, stuff. So that helps out a lot because it's things that are easy and they don't take up a lot of space, but you get a lot of nutritional bang for your buck, you know. So yeah, they really know. I don't foresee them ever ever going high carb. As long as they stay healthy, they're fine with real above ground carbohydrates around 50 grams. That's just fine. But I tell them you got to have your protein first. You want to have fruit, you're going to eat your meat first. And they know. They're like, yep, protein comes first.
Awesome. That's amazing. I'm so jealous of these kids and like the life they're going to have that I didn't have and you didn't have, like the difference in what they're going to be able to feel and accomplish as they're growing up and, paying attention at homeschool and like, all the successes, in athletics and whatever their professional endeavors are going to be like. I never had that chance, and neither did you. So, the main thing that I love about your story is your passion for sharing this, not just taking this information and making it work on yourself, and not only sharing it even just with your family, but getting it out there to more people. I know you do tons of speaking and you try to share things on your YouTube and social media. And I think it's so absolutely wonderful that you're doing that, because your story is amazing and it's very transformative. And I agree with you. If one person hears this information and it helps benefit them, it's all worth it. It's all totally, totally worth it. So I'm so very grateful for everything that you have been through. Definitely a painful growing up and very difficult challenges to coming out the other side and being so passionate and lit up that you'd be willing to share your message and come on our show today. Shari, where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work? And let's make sure that rather than the introduction, we actually use the right links. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So I do have a YouTube channel, and I have actually broken 400 subscribers. So I'm so excited. It took a while to get there. I am busy, so I don't always get things up as much as I would like to, but it's getting there. And that is actually it's at Neolife Keto Shari is the handle, and then it'll pop up and say the Carnivore Mommy, and you'll see my mug with the cowboy hat. And so that's my YouTube channel. On Instagram, I am the_carnivore_mommy. And I do have a Facebook page called Reif Natural. And then I have my website, sharislowcarbkitchen.com. It's a little outdated because I kind of put most of my effort into the YouTube because that's where everyone seems to go now. But I do like to write health articles and things like that, and I'll post them on my website. So yeah, those are the places that I am. People can feel free to message me or whatever on Instagram. I've had a couple of people like reach out for some help, or like, do you know of a carnivore friendly doctor? And thankfully I do, because our functional medicine practitioner, while she doesn't eat carnivore herself, she's very friendly to this way of eating, and she'll actually send her patients to me if they need dietary advice. So it works out really well, and she's functional med, so she's more honed into the labs that need to be done, and the smaller lab ranges versus like these big ones. And so she's just an amazing gal, and we will hang on to her tightly. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. And I try to keep my YouTube channel fun with some education as well. So we'll do like cooking with my kids, and then I'll do some regular recipes. But I want to get the youth involved as much as possible too, because the youth will speak to youth. Like my teenager could say something on YouTube, and a kid is going to respond much better to that than an old fogey like me. They could say the exact same thing, but because it's coming from a kid, it's going to be completely different. Like we did a roundtable discussion on the documentary Fed Up. And if y'all haven't watched the documentary Fed Up, it is so good and just so eye-opening. And it's all on the youth obesity epidemic and what these kids are going through. And so I made my kids watch this as part of their schoolwork. And then we did a discussion about how it made them feel, what their thoughts were. And so, I mean, those are really, really good things, to do. And so I try to get them involved as much as possible. And yeah, So that's what we
Awesome.
do. I try to keep it light and
So amazing.
family friendly.
I love it. So helpful for so many people out there. I love it. I absolutely love your content. We'll link to all of that in the show notes for now. Shari, thank you so very much for everything you've gone through and for taking the time to be on our show today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
So much fun. Absolutely enjoyed it. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.